Hey, what's up guys? So today we are going to be going over a bunch of cards that you should pick up or get rid of due to the meta slightly shaping up right now, as we got a bunch of new archetypes introduced into the game and a bunch of regionals are happening. So let's kick it off with our first card over here, Armageddon Knight, which is basically used in Shaddolls. There's other decks that can use this card, but for the most part, the reason why a lot of players prefer Armageddon Knight over Mathematician, which is still another good card, the reason why is because when you go for Soul Charge, Armageddon Knight is extra sexy, getting those extra free advantages with this card instead of running Mathematician, which only gets its effect when he is normal summoned. Next up, we have Artifact Sanctum. So this card is going up in price simply due to it's pretty much splashing everything now in the TCG. Now in the OCG, it's a different story because Moral Attack is at 1, so that causes a lot of problems. But this card is just so good when your opponent is going to make an XYZ Synchro. If they're going for that 101 to try to absorb or cast steal, you can go ahead and Sanctum, get rid of that card immediately, and you're like, you know what, I still have control. Because Midrash is still good, and you got a Midrash that's backed up with this. It's just dirty for a lot of decks. Or if you got some type of Constellar, you know, XYZ on board, they're going to try to do something to it. Or if you have that other card where you get to draw a card, oh man, what is that? That Paladynamo, is that the card name, where you get to get free plus? Sometimes people try to absorb it, they try to send it to the graveyard, and you just Artifact Sanctum. Man, this card is just, it's teched in almost everything really right now. Next up, we have Dimensional Prison. This is not really increasing as much in price as in play. I would say it's only up a couple bucks, but nonetheless, it's a great card for certain matchups. But the reason why I don't like this card personally as a preference is because I find the card too slow. Once your opponent makes their stuff, they're just going to be able to, you know, perhaps pop this with, say, something like the Shaddol Dragon, and that's the one reason why I hate running this card, because I was like, oh no, I'll just banish their stuff. I prefer cards like Karma Cut, cards like Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, because they're much faster, because by the time that Dragon pops this, you're going to regret this card, and you're like, oh my gosh, if you only didn't pop this card, I would win the game. But every single time, that's just as a personal preference, as well as through my experience, it's too slow of a card for me. But nonetheless, slightly increasing in price, but more so increasing in play. Next up, Ghost Trick Audio Card, still actually increasing in price, surprisingly, because it went down once the reprint got announced, but then it shot right back up when people realized that we gotta have this card for our Burning Abysses, and also it's because this card, they didn't print enough copies of, and also a lot of players are not buying as much Battle Kit as, I guess, as there are not that many in circulation of Ghost Trick Audio Cards. It's either a super short print card, but there's really not too many great things other than that sexy mat in Battle Kit 3, which is the Fairy Girl one. But next up, 101 decrease in price for kind of two reasons. I think it's mainly due to the reprint, but also Castile is also a fantastic card. And there's a lot of times where Castile can be better than 101, but nonetheless, 101 is still a fantastic card. Next up, Deep Dark Trap Hole. This card is seeing increased play. I mean, the card's not too expensive at the moment, but I think it's a great side deck card. For any Pendulum deck, this just wrecks everything. It just gets rid of everything that is 5 or higher. Also has to be an effect monster, but that's probably irrelevant in the game anyways. But this is really good because it's able to hit multiple monsters, and they're banished, which is so good because in the Shaddol matchup, this card is so good also because of the Trap Tricks. It's another searchable card because Trap Tricks, Trap Hole Nightmare, I'm sure as most of you guys have found out, it's not so great against your Shaddol matchup. It's pretty much like a -1 in most circumstances. Occasionally they'll go ahead and make an XYZ and you can actually use it, but for the most part I prefer this card just because it banishes the card and then you don't have to deal with it and they don't get the pluses. Next up, Azneyeswhitedragon Pendulum Dragon, decreasing in price, and this is due to slightly the, you know, hype of the sneak peek. Sometimes, you know, players charge, you know, way too much for their cards, and then everyone else tries to charge about the same, you know, overpriced price for the same cards. But Azneyeswhitedragon Pendulum Dragon, not a bad card at all. I think it's okay to still pick it up, simply because any Pendulum deck, and because Pendulums are new into the game, Konami will support. If Pendulums don't do anything, they will keep on releasing supports for Pendulums until things are absolutely crazy. Now, this card is not necessarily just going to be used in the Cliff Forts, which they changed the name again, but anyways, basically the deck needs to be as fast as possible because there's a deck called the DDDs, which I'll briefly talk about in the future. But I'll kind of talk about it now also. But basically, that deck can actually finish off Cliff Forts really fast. If they don't actually throw up the killer, you can OTK real quick in that deck. So this card just might be too slow for the deck. But nonetheless, Azneyeswhitedragon is still a decent card, guys. It's not going to really fall off because Pendulums are new to the game, and they will have to support the new mechanics. Otherwise, why would they introduce them? They're going to keep on releasing stuff till they become super, super good. Next up, rank up Magic Astral Force. This is increasing in price simply because now a lot of players are actually playing the Burning Abyss. Relatively inexpensive deck when you compare it to the Shaddolls. So this card pretty good in the aspect that it lets you make Pleiades. It also lets you make that Vampire XYZ when you go for the Ghost Trick All You card. But Dante is basically the expensive card in the deck. But other than Dante, I mean, this card isn't really too expensive right now, but it is increasing in price because really no one played it before. Next up, Evil Swarm Excitedite, due to its reprint, pretty self-explanatory. Next up, all the Yang Zings have kind of dropped in price a little bit. They haven't fallen off the earth completely. They are getting some more support. So if they keep on dropping, I wouldn't, mind picking some of these up simply due to the fact that these worms over here, they seem like an okay deck at the moment. The reason why they're basically fallen off, well, they haven't fallen off the planet like I said, but they're just kind of falling off in price slowly but surely right now. They just keep on dropping every single day I check them out. It's because of Armades. This card has increased in price so much, but due to this card basically pooping on the deck, because once you make this card, the deck folds. It doesn't have very many aggressive plays. I know I've seen the build with TGs, but the thing is, this card, it just causes so much problems for the deck. It makes it go way more minus than it needs to, and you're gonna lose out on your supply units if you're playing that. You're gonna lose out on the support cards for the Yang Zings, and also that they're just gonna go straight to the graveyard and you can't special summon it. It just causes way too many problems, and Armades is not that difficult to make for a lot of different decks. It's just a generic level 5 synchro monster. Next up, I honestly have no idea. I tried to look up reasons, but I have no idea why. So if you guys want to comment and let me know why the heck the Grand Spellbook Tower is expensive, I don't know. I've seen builds of Shaddolls that were playing with spellbooks, but it never really took off. I kind of just wrecked it every time when I would just go ahead and play regular Shaddolls. But if you guys know why, let me know. Consider Pleiades as well as that Vampire card. Actually, I picked up a few today. If I didn't have so many cards to sort through, I'd remember the thing. But it's that rank 5 Vampire one. It lets you reborn from your opponent's graveyard, and then it special summons itself once it's destroyed. But nonetheless, Pleiades still a pretty decent card for kind of two reasons, I would say. Artifact Sanctum, still a pretty good card to be able to bring out Pleiades for certain decks, but also the main reason why I would say is probably because of the Burning Abyss deck, because they can just use rank up. I mean, because sellers, they're still a decent deck. A first turn Pleiades can still wreck almost half the stuff in the game right now, I would say. Also, Masked Chameleon slightly increasing in price. You can run this in Shaddolls. You can run it in the Yang Zing. There's multiple targets. You can also use it. Oh, what's that? There's a new archetype called that. I don't remember. It's changed its name several times. I'll make a video on it in the future, but you can use Masked Chameleon as a searchable card when you go for the King of Feral Imps, so it's real easy for that. Also, I just wanted to talk about this card. This is the card of the format, guys. I'm not even kidding. Granville is a super good card. It's not like it's increasing in price. I mean, it comes in like almost every rarity now. But this card, if you get it in high rarity, it is pretty sexy, and I swear this card runs the format. If you open up with this against Shaddolls, against a lot of different XYZ-oriented decks, or even decks that like to set a bunch of cards, like the Batteryman, this card is fantastic in the game right now, because not only does it get rid of the problematic card, but it still stays on board, so even if they effect Baylor it, you still have it, and you can still bounce back stuff. This card is just, I just want to talk about it briefly. Also, I kind of want to talk about the meta in the future. So, at the moment, everyone is worried about the Cliff Forts. There's a bunch of cards actually in the game which can actually counter it that just came out recently, which is kind of surprising because you think that they want the Cliff Forts to be a really strong archetype into the game. But the thing is, if this deck doesn't throw up their stuff, relatively quick, this deck over here, the DDDs, which I will make a video on in the future, showing how aggressive this deck can be. Basically, they have a bunch of cards that can search other cards, so they're able to have huge consistency, and they're also able to pop their supports cards to be able to attack multiple times. So it just OTKs like crazy if you don't have an established board, or if you don't even have like one monster. This deck can OTK real fast. And like I said, the Cliff Fort, sometimes they need 1 turn to set up, they need 2 turns to set up, and if you don't give it to them, they're just going to go ahead and bring out the killer, and then basically you're going to get wrecked by that. Most decks fold the killer anyways in the game, but like I said, it can take a few turns sometimes if they don't open up with it. You can play other decks at OTK. At the moment, I wouldn't say there's a deck right now in the game that really focuses, well, at least that's newly introduced in the game, that really focuses on OTKing. I would say it's more of a format where players like to have control and being able to get free pluses to reestablish, making those XYZs over and over, or those fusion monsters like the The Shaddolls are all about the basically all the free advantage, I would say. So I would say at the moment right now, this is more of a control-based format because mid-rash stuns, the Constellars don't generally OTK too much. I mean, I know you can drop a Dark Armed if you're running the Burning Abyss build of Tellarknights, but for the most part, that deck does not OTK. Shaddolls very rarely will OTK unless they're playing like the Cephalon build and they're dropping multiples in combination with like having a monster already on board. So I would say it's more of a control format, and you know, looking into the future of this game, technically the Cliff Forts, I consider it like a win condition, an instant win condition. So I mean, you can kind of consider that like an OTK format anyways, because once the card is dropped, most decks fold, I would say, at this point in the game. But the DeeDees are going to be a really aggressive deck, so I don't know if we're going to see a more OTK format in the future, but I figure I'd just touch up upon it. If you're not interested in playing anything right now, you can look for these archetypes out in the future. But if you guys felt like I missed out on any card that should be picked up or dropped, whether you're a vendor or you just like to get trade bait for, you know, other trades in the future, let me know in the comment section below. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Asian Eyes signing out.